Every day there is a forgetting, and every moment there is the possibility of remembering. Remembering who you truly are, awakening to your body, to the inner world and experience of being alive. Here is where you find the beauty, the joy. Here is where you free your soma.
Hello and welcome to Free Your Soma, Stories of Somatic Awakening and How to Live from the Inside Out. I'm Amy Takaya, and today I'm here with Andrea Dominguez. She's a certified life coach, ecstatic dance facilitator, and breathwork facilitator. She serves individuals that are at a crossroads. Maybe they feel stuck, they're in transition, and looking to align themselves with what feels good. So I'm so excited to share Andrea and her story and her work with all of you, because we are actually doing a collaboration together later in Yay! And I feel so honored to get to work with her. I got to experience an online breathwork session with her last year and also some of her music. And I just find her energy really grounding and also delightful. And that's a really appropriate combination to have, I think, in a somatic life coach and also in a ecstatic dance facility. So, yeah. So we're going to get into all of that today. We're going to talk about what is somatic and what is a somatic life coaching like philosophy versus maybe a more standardized life coach philosophy, and also about Andrea's individual journey. So welcome, Andrea. Say hello to our audience.
Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be here. It was really nice to have a few minutes with Amy, just kind of chit-chatting, about life before we even started the podcast, and it's really great when you get connected with individuals who are vibrating at the same frequency as you. And one of the things Amy just said was, living life from the inside out. And for me, that's a really big mantra in my practice and for myself, because that's really the only thing we have control over.
Oh, yeah, you could say that again. Definitely.
It's really the only thing we have control over. Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah. No, we can put that as like a little beat in like, in one of the songs, just like tap that in there.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, that's definitely one of my goals for the next year is to kind of elevate my own practice in the music world anyways. Start creating with some other collaborators and maybe create some tracks and things where, kind of putting in those kind of mantras and things with music. And yeah, we'll see where that goes. But I'm getting tangential.
Totally. Yeah. And that's welcome here. You're welcome to share anything that comes up that you feel like, ooh, that's something I want everyone to hear. Right? Or
yeah,
not. This is very conversational the way I run the podcast. But that being said, we're also going to kind of flash back a little bit to your story, to kind of how you came to be a somatic life coach or a somatic person, right? Because there's often an arc that we go through when we even discover, what the word somatic means. There are people out there listening who maybe don't really have a grasp of that yet. I can relate, because that was me the first few years that I was encountering this kind of philosophy. So yeah, wherever on your timeline you want to start, tell us a bit about this journey for you.
Yeah. So I would say I love life, it's so circuitous. Well, maybe first for some of us anyways. For me, it was interesting even thinking about the designation of somatic life coach, right? Because I could just say I'm a life coach, but I feel like for me, that's important to make that signifier, because the understanding of your body's intelligence and the wisdom being brought into the aspect of trying to, quote unquote, change your mind or change a behavior or change an action is really important. I lived a big chunk of my life really just trapped inside of my brain. And I'm creative. I mean, all kinds of wonderful creative things come out of my mind. And I used to think, oh, yeah, I'm pretty in touch with my body. And I mean, I was, of course, but there were some moments, and I'll talk about them, where it's like, wow, no, I really needed another deepening inside of my own body intelligence. I was following logic intelligence. I was following something that I thought was really well thought through and making decisions sometimes for that, and ignoring or not even knowing that there was an inner intuition intelligence, which was to me akin to what my body is telling me and giving me that. So Well, if I'm going to dump on the timeline, what led me here was, I would say, I came out of an art practice. So for me, I have a master's degree in fine art. I taught art. I used to teach at the Orange County Museum of Art out here in California. And that was beautiful and wonderful. And even as an art practitioner teaching arts, for me, everything was about what I used to say, kind of that space in between. I used to love to do performance art and performance pieces and really having people, I would feel so good if someone went, wow, I just had a moment where I paused and I kind of reflected. So, that for me was really huge. I lived in that world for a while and had, really fantastic experiences. And then I was like, wow, okay, now what? Now, I don't know if anybody out there is into numerology, but later in my life, I discovered that I'm a 5. So I like new things. I like continuing to follow, right? And the flow and give me something new and just keep following and following. Fast forward, I was giving hospice care to my grandfather, who for me was like a father figure and still, is, even though he's crossed over. And I thought I had a pretty good grasp and understanding of what I thought, afterlife would be like, or being okay with death. And just something about knowing that's where he was going. I was like, oh my gosh, it was another layer of the onion, uh-oh, but am I really okay with all this? So I was really in an existential crisis. I was like, oh my God, I'm depressed. I don't understand what's happening. Do I even know? Oh my gosh, I've never found it in all the religions that I've gone to. For me personally, what? And a friend recommended someone to me for breathwork who I had been wanting to go to. And I kept asking him, who could you please send me? Could you please? And he never. And literally one day I'm down at my grandfather's house, which is down in San Diego. It's an hour and a half away from where I was living. My friend finally reached out and said, hey, here's the person you should go see. He's doing something down there in San Diego. Check it out. I hopped on my online, and it just so happened something was happening the next night. And I was planning on leaving the next morning. I said, okay, well, I'm going to stay and I'm going to go. This is perfect alignment. And I went to this breathwork event, and my mind just blew my soul out of my body. In a good way. It was because I blew my socks off, but and I went, oh my gosh, it was the most powerful and most beautiful experience I'd had to date at that time, where I felt both simultaneously so embodied and not. I can't describe it for any of you who maybe had those kind of. And for me, awakening is an ongoing thing. Like I'm always continually having these moments of like, oh, that's right. I keep awakening to this thing that I am. And that was definitely one along that thread, that timeline. I thought, oh, if I can experience, if I can give this to anybody else, I'm in. And so happens they were having a training. So they were saying, hey, we're doing a facilitator training. And my mind was like, what are you going to do? You're going to facilitate breathwork? And my heart was like, I was like, oh, I can't do this next one you have, but I'll put my deposit down and I'll do the second time around whenever it comes back around again. And that led me to coaching, facilitating breathwork to getting to coaching, because breathwork, I found I could facilitate individuals in really deepening that connection to their body through their breath. Then we would have these moments where they would have these deep epiphanies and ahas to things that they wanted to shift or let go in their life. And they would come back. But I recognized I wanted to deepen my practice as a practitioner. And so the somatic life coaching felt like another way for me to broaden that container and go, great, I can offer this as an aspect, the breath work, but I can have somatic coaching and then really help people ground it into something specific. An aha, something is great, but if it's not applied on the rubber meets the road into something for me, then I was like, oh, how do you keep that alive? And so the life coaching got me to say, okay, great. So what is that? What is that you experience? And how do you want that to continue to show up in your life? Great. Your wisdom, great. Let's do this. And now there's accountability. Now there's all these other tools. So that's kind of a roundabout way to breathwork to life coaching.
Yes. First of all, I appreciate what you said about the awakening process being this continuous ongoing thing. And it makes sense because we don't just wake up once, over the course of a week or a year. We wake up every morning, right? So of course our
Yes.
consciousness is like constantly going through that same
Yeah.
cycle, of like kind of darkness or like a downturn and then an awakening. And what's interesting is it's like kind of like the ocean. There's these bigger and smaller waves of it. And it sounds like when you went through this experience with your grandfather's passing, there was a really big wave that was going on. Like there was a really deep, dark kind of undertow that you were in for a minute, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
you emerged into this bright light of experience in your body through that breathwork session, through that
Hmm.
specific person's facilitation. And it sounds very aligned, like in so many ways, like, that you happen to go down there and there's something happening the next day, and that there's a facilitator training, and you have that little voice in your heart just jumping, and saying, let's do it,
Yeah.
that you followed those cues, and that speaks to, that in some ways, even though you probably didn't really know that much about the word somatic, you were already a somatic person in a way because you were
Hmm.
an artist. And art, especially art that, I think all art in its own way is very physical, even if
Yeah.
you're, not like doing performance art, but specifically performance art where you're using your body is a very somatic thing to do,
Yeah.
and to really be asking yourself like, interesting questions and then evoking, those interesting questions for other people to ask themselves through observing you. So in many ways, like you were already connected to the somatic world, you just didn't know it. And this was
Hmm.
like an initiation into a more like, specific route of using that body intelligence and cultivating your body intelligence so that you could serve others in this very particular way.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful. Thank you so much for tying that together. Absolutely 100%. I think that it was a route to also integrate it, right? That it was happening there. It was happening like, oh, that's the artistic thing. And then having it become something where, again, where it's on the level of like, oh, my beingness. Who am I? Why the hell am I here? What am I doing? What do we do? All those things again. And then integrating that awareness, like you said. Yeah. Okay, then that is in deeper than my creativity, that attunement. That's even a
Yeah.
word.
Yeah, yeah, it is. We start kind of generally, I mean, we start in the external, we start in the surface, we start in the identity, and then, as you just said, it goes further beyond identity into who is the being underneath this ever-changing, shifting world of like I am, and because we evolve over the course of our lives, we shift and change and evolve, and that's very palpable when you're watching someone go through a death process. It's
Yeah.
interesting because you're having this conversation. I've been having this conversation like in the last week, like four different times,
Mm,
where people are talking about how death and having someone close to them, it not actually pass sometimes, but be close to passing, brought them into this deeper connection with not
yeah.
only themselves, but with like, God, the universe,
Yeah.
oneness, So yeah.
It's just, again, it's also that same dynamic of, I don't know, we kind of said that cyclical thing of the arcs and the sine waves of awakening is this up and down. And for me, I think it's the same thing as with a lot of individuals with, being alive and understanding death. Oh, here you get this close call. Oh, you have somebody, here's something. And then, oh my gosh, that's right. This, like you said earlier, hey, we wake up. Hopefully we wake up every day and not taking that for granted, not
Yeah,
taking for granted just the being alive.
yeah.
you know
It's funny because I don't want to be like one of those people that just rags on the term woke or anything, but we don't just do it once. Yeah, so it's the death thing as kind of this metaphor for life, meaning that, we're only, how do we know we're alive? Well, because we could also not be alive, right? It's
Yeah.
that dichotomy of like those two different energies that sort of pull on us. And here's one where I'd love to get in connected in here with a little bit of the music and the
Yeah.
DJ is that is how you make music. You only have a rhythm because of contrast between like sound and no sound, between
Hmm.
like the difference between beats starts to make these
Yeah.
layers of sound, right? That's literally how it works. Otherwise, it would just be like one tone and nobody would
Yeah.
necessarily be dancing to that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, that's great. Cause I think I love, we're going to get to kind of dive in and out of all the different things here in our conversation, but in ecstatic dance, right? And for any of the listeners who have done it or just dancing in general, but in particular, the flow of ecstatic dance, how maybe initially it was set up, but also for me, when I'm facilitating it, is that arc. Everything's kind of being the arc, the slowly warming, awakening, kind of reconnecting again. You've been busy all week long. Holy shit, I'm stressed. Breathe. Here, I would go back into my body and being guided to arise again. And then that arc of speeding up, go, go, go. Yes, yes, yes. Now you're here. Now let's move. Now let's, okay. And then kind of coming back out again.
Yeah. And I think that having facilitation for that and having a group of people who are intentionally going through that process together, like you do in an ecstatic dance event, this is why I'm so excited for our event, because we're going
Yeah.
to add another layer, which is the somatic movement element to, your ecstatic dance facilitation and really take people through like a deep arc. But beyond that, like what you just described is that we're taking people through a journey in their nervous system from whatever stress they've been maintaining out of that stress state into a place where they can actually tap into the rhythm of their own body, the rhythm of their own heart, and they can start to like release that stress,
Yeah.
but also come back to a lower baseline than they were when they started. Right. And I
Yes.
think for like a lot of people, maybe if you've ever been someone who's just gone out to a club, like you want to go dancing, usually what people need in order to feel comfortable is they need a few drinks. They need to, throw back a few drinks, and they need to decompress a bit. They're awkward when they first start dancing. They're self-conscious,
Yeah.
right? And they need that like space to kind of, like you said, drop out of that stress state and
Yeah.
sort of get into the groove. But there's a totally different approach when you go to an ecstatic dance event,
Yes.
because you have a conscious facilitator who's there to guide you through this process. You don't need alcohol to get there.
No. No, that is one of the biggest differentiating factors. And for those who haven't done or looked into, like, what is ecstatic dance? I've heard about it. Well, how is that different? It's set up as an opportunity. It's a somatic practice. It is a way to go, oh, right, let me get my body moving in a way that my body's guiding me. I'm not there to, go. I like going out to hear music in clubs and things like that. But it's, look, you're there to really, how can you tune into your body's flow and rhythm and movement, and giving yourself the freedom to say, wow, I just want to like shake up and down like a crazy person. I don't know why. Great. The opportunity to do that movement without the connection to a thought pattern is great. Although maybe that movement may open up something that, holy shit, I didn't even know that was really bugging me. So, it can be either or. You can move towards something and not have the thought pattern, or moving and the thought pattern comes in, and get the opportunity to release it. It's a substance-free environment, and there's no talking on the dance floor. So you get to be on this dance floor, be in your zone. Now you can dance with other people, but there's a permission of that. You kind of look, you're vibing. Hey, is somebody kind of in their own zone? I'm not going to approach them. And hey, someone can come up to you and maybe try to initiate to do some partner dancing or flow with you. And you get the acknowledgement. Okay, then you do. Or if you're not, you just kind of put your hands together and bow, and thank you, not interested right now. And you move on. And you just get down.
Yeah, no, I mean, I fell in love with ecstatic dance from the moment that I had my first experience with it. And I think from that point forward, I was just like, personally, anytime I was anywhere dancing, I was internally ecstatic dancing
Yeah.
and kind of in that zone. Like I
Yeah.
literally, nobody ever told me like that you can just, I mean, I experienced that in other like active meditations. Like I did some
Yeah.
active meditations where they gave you like that signal of like, if you're in this nonverbal place, you just kind of nod to someone and bow, and that's letting them know like, oh no, I'm not available for mental stuff right now. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a different place, right? I'm in
Mm-hmm.
my body realm, and I'm not going to drop out of that and go into like talkie mode, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because I mean, I have loved dancing since I was a baby holding myself up against a couch in my diapers, dancing to Elvis Presley. And, ecstatic dance was, gosh, more of a newer experience for me. I'd always heard, I knew, I was like, oh yeah, I don't know. That's not for me. Or it's like, and there's, so funny how we have all these perceptions of the kind of individuals that would go to when I first heard, I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not that wild and free. So I just didn't do it. And I had friends that I would go dancing with. And if I could find when I would find a good vibe, if I would go to a music event, especially day dancing parties would be fun for me. Like, oh my gosh, that's my intention was to go, gosh, I want to hear some great music and I just want to get out of my mind. And I don't mean like, in a substance out of my mind. Like, I just wanted to get out of my mind and just get into a rhythm and groove and just dance it out. And then discover, hey, there's this, that's what is ecstatic dance too. Oh, you're in this other container and this way to actually go. And that is the intention behind that. That is the opportunity there behind that. So it's always been there for me to want to do that.
I think maybe even just the word ecstatic can kind of be for some people like a little intimidating,
Yeah.
because we tend to think, I mean, obviously there's a drug called ecstasy that's kind of intense. There's also this idea that, things that are ecstatic or that, in places where we're experiencing ecstasy as like a feeling in our bodies that we're going to be out of control or that it's going to be overwhelming or that maybe it's going to be sexual. Like maybe there's a lot of
Yes.
people unpack around that word that can feel intimidating.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Amy. I've thought about that a lot, and especially as somebody who, I've been putting on events of my own for a while now, different types, whether it's a breath ceremony or, coaching this combo, my own ecstatic dance. And I've thought about that going, because sometimes language can turn people off to the exploration of it. And I don't think I really had an answer to it, but it was like, yeah, I like that she brings that up because I thought about that too, and don't let ecstasy, for any of you who've heard about that or wondered, I put off going and trying it for a long time as well, just based on my own perceptions. And, if you're interested and you love dancing and you haven't, find a community around where you live. There's so many in the Los Angeles area and they're all across the US and globe. Try it and try it again, because the wonderful part about that is each DJ, each space, again, they also have their own vibe and energy, and you can kind of play around and go, oh, hey, there's this kind of feel here and there's this kind of feel and there's that. And you just kind of treat it like a playground. So I encourage everyone to try it if you have a little teeny tiny interest. Say yes.
For sure. I agree. I mean, I think that it's even a really great spot for someone who maybe is not considers themselves like they're not like, I'm not a dancer. I don't dance, but it's like a place where they could go to like maybe explore that side of themselves without any judgment from anybody else, because it's such a place of like acceptance of however your body wants to move, and there's not like these kind of rules or nobody's standing around like looking at you like, rating you like maybe you feel like people are at a club or something, if you're there to like meet somebody, like it's a totally different environment. So, what I'm excited about in terms of bringing the Hannah somatic movement element into is that another barrier that sometimes gets in people's way of wanting to, dance or do any kind of like more active movement in their bodies is if they have like tension and discomfort and pain in their body that they live with, because maybe they've had the experience of, they feel like, oh, I want to go dancing or I want to go on that run or I want to do that thing. But then halfway through the experience, their lower back is hurting a lot or their neck is hurting, or maybe it doesn't happen maybe during they feel pretty good. But then like the day after their body's just like wrecked or they're like limping home from the event because their muscles were already tight when they started. And then they did all this really, big, fun movement, but it stopped being fun once the pain started coming in. Right. And so what I'm really looking forward to in this event that we're creating together, and what I've also like really, we'll talk about this eventually, but I've imagined like retreats that would be like ecstatic dance and somatic movement. And it would be a whole like experience, and we could bring in breath work and there's a whole somatic element here that could be explored right through our bodies and through creating like more capacity for joy in our bodies, is like what happens when we break through that barrier of it's going to hurt and we actually create balance and ease and calm in the muscles of your body before you go into this experience.
Yeah. I think the word that's coming to me is the spaciousness, right? And I am excited to have the first portion of the workshop that we're creating together is this opportunity for individuals to be working with you to actually create some more space first, because you don't know what you don't know until you know it. Right.
Yeah.
And holy crap, I didn't know I was so freaking tight, in my arm, in my neck, in my back, because, you're busy living your life. And the way I experienced your practice is just the subtleness of it. You're just like, whoa, what? And I didn't recognize that felt that way here. And just with the subtle movements and the way you facilitate and how you educate these movements inside the body, it's like, boom, all of a sudden you're like, my whole right side feels like, all of a sudden it's giant and open, and the other side feels like it's shrunk. Okay, now we can do this on the other side. So, you're going to really give individuals this opportunity again to tap in, to open up, to remove pain, and again, just openness, because we can really, it's hard to explore. And again, of course, inside of a dance, hey, if somebody wants to dive in and just go straight dance, and I know I'm tired, I'm going to go do this and start moving around, great. But hey, I didn't realize I was holding so tightly. Well, now you're opened and now you can start to go dance. Now you can start to even take up even more space, not only just inside your body, but in the physical world, taking more space and being okay to be you in the physical space and be more open energetically, which in turn allows us to be more open interiorly with ourselves, with our emotions, with what's going on, right? And like
And
what
more
we
transparent with others, because
oh my
we
gosh,
actually know what we have going on inside. So we can
absolutely,
share it versus being a little bit
absolutely,
cloudy and confused and not really sure what's going on. And someone asks you how you are, or there's an opportunity to connect with
yeah,
somebody, and you're like not sure what to say because you don't know where to start, because it's
yeah,
not clear to you what's been going on. And
yeah,
so having that inner connection is like going to allow you to have that sense of community with other people more easily.
yeah. And I think the other thing too with that is, there's sometimes an element of fear and vulnerability, right? There is. Let's face it. As human beings, sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, I'm married. I want to share something with my husband. Oh no, is he going to be upset? Is he, how's this and what? And being able to bring fear along for the ride, regardless of what it is you're doing, to me is the gift, because never experiencing fear is unrealistic. Never having it, hey, maybe it will diminish in certain areas, but maybe it shows up here. But, hey, on the dance floor and moving your body, the fear. And I imagine as a practitioner, I mean, you were like, oh my, I don't want to do that. Oh, but that hurts so bad. I don't want to push through that. Here's where that barrier is. So I'm going to keep on staying here. And the more you stay there and the longer that goes on, the more it becomes ingrained in the body, the more that thought pattern becomes ingrained in the mind, and so on and so on and so on. So it's the opportunity to keep being with that fear and still having it and going through that, opening up more space to be with it and bring it along, and opening and opening and opening. And when you dance and you're doing something, you're going through on this dance floor, you're just letting yourself go. I feel like it just keeps on circling back into itself in a really positive way. And it does give us more courage to be vulnerable in all areas. Yeah.
And what you just said, I feel like is such an important distinction between what somatic work offers people, whether it's in a life coaching realm or whether it's in dance or whether it's in, the body work that I do, is
Yeah.
this concept of going with our experience and going with ourselves. You just said that, like, instead of, you were talking about fear and you're saying, how can I go with that, with the fear, or bring the fear along with me? Versus a lot of nomenclature ways of speaking about this might be like push through the fear, right?
Yeah.
Push through the fear, push past the barrier. And this is a totally different approach of not actually trying to plow past our limitations, but understand and respect them
Yeah.
and start to dance with them and start to invite them to be part of us and
Yeah.
acknowledge their because they're there for some reason. They're
Yeah.
always there. Our emotions, our feelings, they always exist in us for some very, very good reason that we may not be in touch with. And in getting in touch with it, you start to see that limitation that you previously experienced, whether it's physically in your body, just kind of melt away or get less and less, and like you said before, like there's no such thing as like having a life with no fear, but we can be fearless. We can
Mm.
have less fear.
Yes.
I like to tell people that with like this concept of
Fear
like
less.
a little less,
Yeah. Yeah.
like painless. We think of painless, that doesn't mean no pain.
No.
Limitless doesn't mean no limits. It's not like we're just gonna like, if there was no limits, we would no longer be in a body. We would just sort of like float off into the ether as like a no thingness, right? But we have to have these limits. We have to have this contrast of like nothing and something, right? The zero and the one. So there's
Yeah.
this contrast, and it's through these practices we can fear less. We can have pain less. We
Yeah.
can have less limits in life. And that is really, what I think freedom is having those choices and being able
Yeah.
to modulate ourselves in the moment.
Yeah. I think it's the freedom to be with the full range of emotions that we have as a human being.
Mm.
And it's very easy to designate something as either a good feeling or a bad feeling. Oh, well, then I don't want the bad, quote unquote, bad feelings. And like you said,
Yeah.
you can either try to, forcefully something, or for me, the other thing too is sometimes just bypassing it. And that's
Mm.
just as bad.
Right. That's like avoidant, right? That's like, I'm just
Right. That's
gonna
like putting
pretend
frosting on
that's
a
not
shit pie. I mean,
yum,
it,
yum.
that sounds so great. And really being with it and being able to go, it's okay to be with that. And you made a really great point inside of that is, well, what is that? Oh, the body will start. Here I am in this dynamic. I'm talking to somebody, and all of a sudden, I don't even recognize it because it's happening just so instantaneously. My body is tensing up. My stomach's getting weird. I'm starting to restrict myself. Because I don't like maybe what I think or I'm perceiving this person is starting to say. I'm already going there, and I'm like, oh gosh, fear, fear. Oh. Danger, 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 Will Robinson or whatever. And now everything is shut down, right? My nervous system is shutting down. I'm not operating on all my cylinders, and the connection between my heart, mind, and my brain are like constricted. Well, how am I being with my full range of self and able to be in this conversation, in this dynamic, right? So there's a trigger in there. There's something. Well, what is that? And it's like working with someone who's a somatic coach. Now, if it's something a bigger trauma, of course, and you're working with your therapist on that, but being able to go, okay, can I slow down? I'm recognizing tension. I can give it some identification, welcome his presence to be here. And like, what exactly is it saying to me? What exactly is the wisdom that's being offered here? And then that's where the work lies. That's where the opportunity is like, oh, all right. I can be here. I can breathe through that. I can go through that. And having a container, having a practitioner, someone to be with you to tap into that completely aligned and embodied wisdom. Now you're like, okay, what's the real truth here? The real truth is, da 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 da. Not my fear, instantaneous fear. To me, that's
Yeah.
what somatic coaching, somatic work is about. And we live in a time where there's so many wonderful practices out there to support individuals in becoming more fully online with themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I think, what you described before about the physiological reaction that somebody can be having internally simply to like listening to someone talk, and maybe they're picking up on things like the person's tone of voice. Maybe the person
Yeah.
physically looks like somebody that they used to know. And
Mm-hmm.
all of that information is being processed by their body instantaneously, and their mind is coming up with like a explanation of like why they're having that experience, right? Maybe they're making, they're pigeonholing, oh, this person has this political view, or they must think this
Yes.
about this kind of person, or they must hold these values. And there's these projections of like what they think is happening. But really, most of what they're responding to is their somatic experience
Mm-hmm.
of that person. And it's happening inside of them. And so a lot
Yeah.
of times we look out into the world and we say the problem's out there,
Yeah.
right? And then there's this kind of switcheroo where we realize, oh, maybe I'm the problem, or maybe the problem is inside of me, right? And then there's another layer where we go, oh, maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it's just part of a learning process.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just part of a process of discovery, and I
Yeah.
think that what you also said before, which is a really great distinction, is that the services that you and I offer, they are not designed to just be like the one thing that you do. A lot of times my clients, and maybe you can speak to this also, are people who've already done some years of talk
Yeah.
therapy, who've already started to unpack these things in their consciousness, in their body that have been going on for a while. But they're ready for deeper integration of that.
Yeah.
They're ready for like real time, deeper integration of kind of the things that have been excavated.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's beautiful because it is. Once, you put the light on in the room or you start to like, oh, okay, what's that? I want to start navigating around here. Oh, I need to start getting these things out of the way. Oh, that felt good, but now I'm feeling a little crunchy over here. I want to feel a little more lightness in my being here, and keep unwinding those coils in a way that just, ugh, you know, I can just, there's all kinds of crazy stuff happening in the world all the time. And it's ongoing and it will continue that way even after I'm gone and you're gone and most of these listeners are gone. But being able to be in the world with all the range of humanity and with ourselves with a lot more space and a lot more grace for ourselves so we can have more grace for others. Oh, I mean, please, we need more of that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And the other thing that these practices foster, and I'm fully, I'm just so excited about what we're going to create energetically at this event
Mm,
together, because when we start to really feel into ourselves and feel into what's been going on, and we start to invite in more spaciousness, more grace. I love that word that you just used. And also some of that, maybe a little bit of that ecstasy that's possible
yeah.
to experience through our bodies, right? Substance-free
Why
ecstasy,
not?
right? We just start to invite some of that in. This combination starts to really open us to, like you said, other people and create loving kindness, compassion, and we're calling our event Blossom Anew. And
Yes.
the metaphor here is that we get to flower into our full essence and we get to encourage, invite other people to do the same because we create this container of like actual safety in ourselves first, safety to experience what's
Yeah.
coming up, safety to move however our body needs to move,
Yeah.
safety even to experience pain and discomfort, right? Because we know that it's not going to be there forever, that there's a way to navigate it, like you said, with more grace and more ease.
Ooh, yeah. I think one of the most challenging, it's challenging and I lean into it, and you referred to it a few moments ago about, you know, and I'll say it in my own terms is there's no one out there. It's, we think it's out there, something's out there, out there, out there. And of course there is, and there isn't, right? It's the yin and yang. It's the inner outer. The more we're able to be with our own, and I use the term messiness because
Mm.
always wanted to, I'm a recovering trying to be perfectionist. And I don't think that just came from this lifetime. I think it came from other lifetimes too. But being able to be with that and the messiness is a good thing because that is nature, we're part of nature. And so the more grace, the more love I can bring for myself when I think I'm misbehaving, when I think I'm getting messy, when I'm not living up to my own expectations, when I've spoken to somebody in a way I didn't want to, all the things, we could list them all. The more healthy way I can be with myself with them. That doesn't mean removing responsibility. That doesn't mean not being an adult about it and recognizing, oh, okay, great. I got it. I can have some creative criticism towards that, but in a way that's loving and in a way that's like, hey, that does not define who I am. Right. Because that's how we define everybody else out in the world. Oh, you know what? You screwed up with me. I'm never going to speak to you again. Really? Okay. Well, chances are that's probably how we are with ourselves. So the more, we can be with ourselves in those ways that our relationships outside just, I've seen it in my own life. Just some people will drop away and some things, everything has a season. And then the other relationships, you're like, wow, this is just completely transformed. Right.
Mm.
As a result of me loving myself more.
Yes, yes. I mean, I'm sure we could go on a bit about like how marriage is such a catalyst for that. If
Oh, yeah.
survive being married, especially in this culture where like there's a lot of like mentality of like, oh, it's not working out, red flags, should probably
Bye-bye.
jump ship,
Yeah.
right? But it's
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I be like that red flag thing. It's like, oh, yeah, I should have seen that as a red flag. It's like, wow, yeah. I must look like a mini golf course because I have all kinds of red flags sticking around everywhere.
And I also relate to the difficulty with messiness, in preparation for this event together. And we've kind of alluded to it a few times, but we traded services. You
Yeah.
got to experience the somatic body work with me,
Yeah.
and I got to have a life coaching session with you. And it was really, really beautiful. My body was very comfortable with you. I was very receptive. And the place that I'm at in my life right now, like there's a lot of messiness that I'm contending with on a daily
Mm.
basis. I'm in the middle of a big transformational move across the country. And what I so appreciated about the way that you facilitated was you had me tell my story, but you kind of slowed me down along the way of telling my story of what was bothering me, right? And you picked up on some really key components of that story, and you had me focus in there and focus into those parts that were showing up in my body and inviting me to notice how they were showing up. And I mean, at this point in my somatic journey, I've gotten the feedback from many people that I'm very coachable, right? In a good way. Like, not that I'm, like a noodle in the wind or something, but I'm very coachable because I have this connection with myself through my
Yeah.
somatic
Trust.
practices. I trust
Hmm.
myself, and
Yeah.
I can also feel into another person pretty well now, and feel if they're vibrating at that same frequency that I can trust, that they've
Yeah.
done the personal work that they need to do to be able to hold that space for me, in a place of like this groundedness that
Yeah.
you definitely carry. And so I loved that session because, even though we just had one, it was at this really perfect point, in that week for me of things I was going through. And you just helped me narrow in not only on how I was feeling, but also on some very practical things that I could do to support myself. And you didn't give me those. You got me to give them.
Yeah.
You got me
Yay.
to
I
like,
did my job.
yeah,
Right.
you ask the questions that help me solve my own problem. And I think that that's really, as far as I understand it, that's like what, you know, effective life coaching really is. And somatic life coaching for sure is getting the person in touch with themselves. It's the same way with my somatic movement. I am not guiding people in just
Hmm.
some formula. I want real time information, not just for myself, but for them to notice and experience what's going on in their body. I can't feel what's happening like in
Yeah.
your legs or your hips, right? You can. And so you are the one to gather that information. And then I'm the facilitator there to help it make it easier for you to do something with that information, and it's not going to be, I'm not going to have the answer of what you should do. Your body has the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can't tell. I mean, you can. There's lots of that out there. Hey, let me tell you how to do something. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. Let me tell you how to do it. Great. Don't don't take my word for it. Try it out.
Yes.
And that really was the couldn't have been. I mean, it was actually the highest accolade of my facilitation for you is that look, I asked you the questions that helped you get to your own answers, because the methodology of that is really awareness, having awareness so you can get into an aligned action,
Mm.
right? Well, actually, it's awareness of something, acceptance, and then aligned
Mm.
action.
Right. Yeah. Well, we
Right.
have to be able to accept it to move anywhere with it.
Yeah. And it's like what we were saying earlier. I think that's the word that kind of summarizes a few moments ago what we were talking about of really, bringing the fear along or bring something and creating the space to accept the what is at that moment
Mm.
without judgment, without the story on top of it, without the
Yeah.
naming of it. Because then you can go, oh, all right. Well, it's here. And because the more you run from something, the bigger it gets, the more power it has over us, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to, okay, you know, all right, fear, what do you have to tell me? Oh, I haven't been having enough fun. Okay, I gotcha. I got you, boo. Let's go have some more fun, and this is how I
Oh,
promise.
yeah. And fun is so important in healing any kind of difficulty, like having fun, because that's one of the first things to go when we get really stressed and when we're stuck in our fight or flight is we are not interested in any fun.
Oh
We are
no.
here for the business.
It's serious business. Yeah, it's
Yes.
serious. It's got to be very significant. Everything's so freaking significant. And I think about when I look at, different gurus from different, practices that are out there in the world. And, some of the ones that for me personally, I gravitate, you look and it's like, hey, you got this like kind of glintery little trickster twinkle in your eye, like they're like, don't make everything so serious.
Yeah, because it starts to lighten us up. It starts to bring us back into more of our, childlike state, you could say, but also maybe the original state, that we
Mm,
were all children at one point and had this openness and had this creativity, and had this plasticity in our brains where we could really just,
be,
accommodate and evolve and like take in, information and make it our own, and it brings us back into that space psychologically, physiologically, perhaps even. I don't know all the studies that might be out there about it, about
oh,
the effects of fun on
yeah.
the
But I mean,
brain.
but even that thing, what you were saying there, and I know my teacher, from my training, I'm certified with the Institute of Coaching Mastery with Alyssa Nobriga, and she was a licensed somatic psychotherapist, and she would kind of refer often to the different studies that say, look, when we're able to, without all the things that have happened through our being, our culturation being, how we were brought up, all the da 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 da, but a minute and a half, if you can really be with an emotion and it just gets to move, it's like, then it's gone.
Yeah.
Like, oh, its process is gone now. You're like, great, I can move on. It's like, and little kids are kind of like that. Oh, they get upset. And if you can see them, they just, it's like, okay, pretty quickly. Okay, I'm done. Okay, well, but I want to go on to this other thing.
Yeah. No, my son does that all the time. He's like, I hate you, mama. You're the worst mama ever. And then like 45 seconds later, he's like, hey, mom, want to read a book?
Yes. And you're like, oh, you're like, wait, what? And they do. And it's like a feeling. It's like something comes up and there's not this like grasping onto it and holding it and then holding it and holding it and holding it. And then, it's like the saying goes, looking for agreement out in the world. We have a thought and something that's a limiting thought or belief. Oh, let me keep on looking out in the world for proof that that's true
Mm-hmm.
as a
Yes.
protection mechanism, as opposed to, well, let's keep on looking for proof that, what, the universe actually has my back.
Yeah, there's a word for that. They call it pronoia. And it's the opposite of paranoia. It's the universe is like out there working for me. It's working in my favor.
Yes.
Pronoia.
Yeah. If any of your listeners, if you haven't heard of Rob Bresney horoscope, he has his newsletter for that. He is Pronoia. And oh my gosh, he's gotta love that guy. I mean, he just sends the most in-depth newsletters and things for his astrology forecasts and just precious. So, look him up.
Yeah. I'm just so incredibly stoked for our event together coming up on February 18th. But I also, want to give our listeners a moment to connect with your individual work. So maybe you can
Mm,
describe, because you have a couple of different modalities that you're working
mm,
with here, right?
mm-hmm.
So as a like life coach, right? You work one-on-one with people.
Yeah.
How do you bring breath work into those settings, or do you do breath work as a separate offering? You might probably do groups. Can you just describe a little bit about how your practice functions?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'll circle back or kind of circle back a little bit. So, listeners have now got a sense of, who I am and what I'm about just by hearing a conversation that we've had going back and forth. And what I'm a stand for inside of being a practitioner is really to support my clients in feeling alignment, like inner alignment to the totality of who they are. So you can go do that thing that you've really been wanting to do, whether it's an exterior thing or an interior thing, and experience those feelings that you want to be experiencing. Oh, you want to go get that job because you want to feel on purpose, because you want to feel like you're doing something that you love, right? That you're making a difference. You want to go take on painting again because that's just always been your heart's desire. And when you take on painting, you're going to feel creative and you're going to feel fully self-expressed. Like that is the work, right? So you can experience living your life the way you want to live. Somatic coaching really is about all of those things that Amy and I have been talking about. It's really helping my clients to integrate not only mindset, right, but using somatics and the wisdom of the body, bringing in emotions, bringing in the mental, looking at behaviors, and also working with the unconscious mind. So there's all those levels that we get to work with. And back to your question is, how do I work? How do I facilitate? The range. I work one-on-one. I do group events. Sometimes they're online, sometimes they're in person. Breath work, I do on its own because I find sometimes that's a great way for people to come and just use it as a form of active meditation. But I'll also, in working with someone, say, hey, look, I think this could be something that could really support you. So it's understanding, we're such dynamic beings. Some people may spend a lot of time in the mental space. And there's also, I've also met the individuals who are like, oh, I'm just, I feel. And then and maybe for them, it's like learning how to ground a little bit more down and go, okay, great. Let me start putting something into that space, right? So none of them bad or good or better or worse. It's just tools, right, of how we get to do that. And then the ecstatic dance, sometimes I combo ecstatic dance with breath work, done it on my own. I also do lots of DJ gigs on my own, but yeah. So if you are looking for support in your life and, you're doing the things and you want to get some tools that will help you deepen your relationship to yourself so you can deepen your relationship to your life, I got you. Right? I've got tools that you're going to learn to and then implement them far after we're working together. I mean, that's the goal. I want to empower people to say, look, here's this different way of making decisions from this different space in your life. So that way you get to embody what that feels like. And then now that's your baseline. We kind of get back to our baseline. So on my website, we'll probably give the links. You can reach out to me, and I've got some really awesome freebies for all your listeners. So yeah.
Yeah, I saw that one that it's a limited supply, but you're offering 3 free
Yeah.
coaching sessions. That is
Yes.
really awesome
Yeah.
offer. And if you're listening, whoever's listening, and you've been connecting with what we're speaking about,
Mm,
connecting with Andrea, hop on that because that is
yeah.
really juicy special offer. So excited that you're offering that.
Yeah, it'll go fast. So, for 3 individuals, a full coaching session. And meaning to make that distinction is hey, you're kind of got something, you're stuck, you'd like to talk to a coach about it, and you really want to experience a new way. We're going to just dive right into it. And so that way you can experience and you can walk away with that. You will get something. I guarantee there's no doubt in my mind. So reach out to me, jump on it. The other freebie I have is going to be a Living My Vision worksheet. It's downloadable. Again, there will be the link there that you can download the PDF. And this worksheet I use with every single client that comes on to me for a container, work with me inside of a container. Because one of the distinctions of the life coaching, right? And why, gosh, even in my training, so many individuals that were in this training program and I'm not hearing coaches as well were therapists at one point, and then they moved into coaching because they wanted to bring in the element of accountability. They wanted to bring in, hey, I want to actually, great, let's talk about what's going on, but then let's have you move towards something and take the actions and doing the things where the rubber meets the road and the uncomfortableness comes to like really make a change. And a vision is kind of your North Star. What do you want? How do you want to feel? Right. And this vision work is just really lovely. Treat it like a nice date with yourself. Find a nice little place, spend some time. We're still the beginning of the year. You can kind of look out a year ahead from now, what you want to create in your life. So download it, use
Yes.
it.
Definitely, because I know from experience you ask really great questions. So important to sit
Thank
there
you.
and like ask those great questions of ourselves to create more greatness in our lives. And,
Yeah.
a little bit for the people about our event, it is going to be a 3.5 hour joint workshop experience. So it's
Mm,
different than just like maybe a ecstatic dance meetup that you might
yeah.
find in LA, where it's going to be a little bit of movement and then we're going to dance and we're going to hold you guys in a
Mhm.
container that Andrea and I are creating together with our joint experience and energy that
Mhm.
is going to be very intentional. It's an intentional space for you to feel held safe and start to create that grace inside your body through the somatic movement, through the ecstatic dance facilitation, right? And it's small and intimate. We're not going to have like
No,
50 people there. We're going to
it's,
have like max like 20-ish, right?
yeah. And so if you're in the LA area, please, we would love to see you there and have your energy be part of the collective. And Amy just spoke really well to that. It is going to be a really beautiful container. And you can see just in listening to how Amy and I are integrating our conversation together, I think it flows quite fluidly, is that the container itself is really an opportunity for you to deepen your own personal embodiment, right? And just do some more exploration, whether you're seasoned with doing your own somatic work or whether it's something that you're curious about, like, oh, I hear this term somatic thrown around a lot. And oh, I don't know. And, some of these little things are, we've got you covered in that. And this is going to be such a beautiful space. You're going to get some wonderful education from Amy on things that will impact you. I guarantee you immediately. Amy talked a little bit about working with me, and I had the opportunity to receive some work with her, and the subtleness, but it's so impactful. I mean, honestly, and there were some movements that I did that were around like my shoulder area, and I went, whoa. And I'm still like, wow. It kind of created a new circuitry for me in a way to go, oh, wait, there's that one. And then, oh, there's that. Okay, no, that one's showing up again. Oh, no.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds a little out there, but it really is like that. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, and I think that's an important thing because, again, it's about identifying which is the one that feels contracting, which is the one that feels expansion. It's the
Right.
same.
Yeah, that
And
distinction,
so,
that contrast.
yeah, so it just delicious. And we're going to have that happening in the beginning. There's going to be conversation. There's going to be opportunities to really connect with each other and the other guests that are there. And then the movement, I'll do a little bit of guidance through the ecstatic portion so we can build on what we've experienced with Amy. And again, the theme is important, right? We're going to be, it's in February, then it's going to be pretty soon. It's going to be springtime and blooming and starting to move, and the energy's coming up again. So you start to open up, and we're going to move into some music, and I'm going to drop some bangers in there too. So we're going to be dancing, having a good time. So
Oh, yes. No, I've been dreaming of this for a while, and I put it out there to, my field of, the connections I have out
yeah,
there. And I just put my fishing line out there, and you came, and I'm like, what?
yay.
Love it.
Fantastic. So yes, we've got all the details there, and Amy will point you to where you
Yeah.
can find all the deets.
You can find all the information about Andrea and her fabulous freebies in the show notes, also her website, and we'll also have a link to our Eventbrite page for the event itself. If you want to skip the fees, you can also reach out to Andrea and I individually
Mhm.
and buy your ticket that way. If you don't want to pay the Eventbrite fees, that's also an
Yeah.
option, right?
Blossom anew. Yeah. So if you're ready to blossom,
Mm.
anything, fully aspects of something, a thought, you've got a seed of something inside of you that, you've been sitting on for a while. This container is going to be really fertile ground to bring that seed, have it be nourished, have you get connected to what is nourishing for it so it can germinate and start to bloom into reality. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I'm so thrilled and excited for this and for future collaborations that we may come up with together. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing, again, that delightful yet grounded energy that you carry. That, I think you really do exemplify like that five energy of creativity and, newness and bringing in and innovating, right, our human experience.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I was very excited to be on your show. And again, you know, I think I said this at the beginning, and I'm going to bookend it, is I was giving Amy just this acknowledgement before we even hopped onto the recording of, who she is and what she's creating out in the world. Right. And as a mom, the stand that she is in being a container as a mom, but also as a practitioner and doing what she's doing in spite of, right? Because so many people, we could have reasons to not do things, but doing it with all of those things. I want you all, any of you out there, looking for finding ways or the right moment or the right time, all of those elements, because that is false. There is no right time. There's better times, but there's no right time. This girl is committed to it, and she is out there making a difference, and she's doing it with her life the way her life shows up. So I'm really grateful to have met her, to be part of this. Looking forward to seeing you LA people, or people coming from somewhere else to come into LA to our event. Right. Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that acknowledgement. It has been, they're going to eventually be recording a podcast about the last 6 months of my life, because it has been a doozy. It has been a roller coaster for sure. And yeah, and just the way that these somatic practices that both you and I offer develop that kind of adaptability and resiliency in our physical bodies and in our minds, to be able to step out of that perfectionist, step out of that, hesitancy, that belief that there's going to be a right time and it's going to be the right circumstances, right? And instead be pragmatic enough to really work with what's in front of us, and bring our goals, bring our energy to full bloom, regardless of the specific weather condition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with. I love that's a magic with. Yeah, definitely the magical with unicorn.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And yeah, look for all the information in our show notes. And yeah, we'll bring you more fun conversations soon. You've been listening to the Free Your Soma podcast. To find out more information about today's guest, check the show notes. And to find out more information about me, Amy Takaya, and the Radiance program, visit www.freeyoursoma.com.